was the big focus in practice this week when you look back at the last game and the things that went wrong?
Right.
Some of your coaching points over the last few days.
It starts with the run defense. Like that is something, as a defensive coach, and I know the defensive players on this team, we take great pride in. And we did not play the run even close to our standard last week, or the New England week for that matter. So that's absolutely being addressed. The light has been shown on it. Coaching it tighter, players know they need to play it better, and that's technique, that's calls, that's a little bit of everything, But that's definitely where the focus has been.
You play a team this week that they run well, they pass well.
Yep.
What's the challenge against the Bills, especially with that quarterback?
Right. I mean, that's what it is. It's, first of all, we have to try as much as we can make them one-dimensional from that standpoint. So we have to play the run well. We have to make the play action not as valid. We play the run really, really well. It creates longer third downs, longer second downs, where we have an opportunity to pressure and play more coverage-based defenses where we can manipulate the back end a little bit, help with the matchups, hopefully cause a little bit of confusion. But that's it. It's an extremely tough opponent in that way, because it's like you said, they don't have a true weakness. They have good scheme, good players, and when it's clicking for them, they're as tough as it gets.
One of the narratives coming out of Buffalo this week after their loss to Jacksonville is that their offense struggles against the too high safety looks. Have you sensed that? Is that what Jacksonville did to kind of throw them off?
They did, like that's something that we've majored in a little bit this year. So that helps us from that standpoint. And not to say that he struggled, just maybe hasn't played as well versus that type of look at times. It's definitely something that we've done in the past, we're capable of doing. It'll be something that hopefully is good for us this week too.
How have you seen teams change the way that they've played you since that Titan game where you guys had the 7 sacks and 14 quarterback hits?
Yeah, there's a concerted effort to not let a quarterback get hit, and that means bring guys more into protection. That means manipulating protections. We're seeing more of that, more of the max protect, chippers, keeping guys in, more 3-man routes. More deeper development stuff off of that look. So it's definitely changed from that standpoint. Them saying they would look at our defense and say our defensive line, especially our interior defensive line, is our strength, and they're not going to let that part of our defense beat them. So it's definitely changed, but it's something that we got to overcome, whether that's calls, whether it's, the way that we rush them, blitz them, pressure them, we got to find a way still.
How do you counter that? Yeah, I guess kind of expanding on that. I mean, how can you counter it now that basically when an opponent's saying we're not going to let the defensive line beat us,
right,
how do you now still manage to get through that and still have the defensive
line? Yeah, it's kind of there's two answers to that. One, you have to really be creative with your pressures to manipulate the protections and beat the protections based upon every single look, which can be difficult, especially when they become less predictable like they have against us. So that's the first part of it. Or there's the other thought where you go into more of a coverage mode if you're saying they're going to devote so many guys to protection. And I think you just got to find the balance between those two worlds. I don't think you can just live in pressure, especially when they're keeping guys in and they've got protection looks and they're blocking you, because now all of a sudden they've blocked you and you have less guys in coverage, and then vice versa. You can't live in the coverage world either, where you don't have the threat of pressure, So it's trying to find the balance between the two.
To follow up on that, obviously this year Josh Allen's been phenomenal. There's been no pressure. But when he gets pressured, it hasn't been as good. But obviously Josh Allen, with his athleticism, sometimes he can, if you bring pressure, he can extend and be able to create big plays. So what's the balance in, okay, when do I send pressure, and what's the balance in, okay, let's sometimes play a little bit safe?
Yeah, I just think you got to find that right balance, whatever that is, and you got to kind of feel the game as it goes for that particular day. He's a guy that it feels as though contact can get him going at times. It's why I've never seen any NFL team, like in the history of football, start 2 minutes with quarterback draws. I think the intent is purely to get him revved up and in rhythm, and so it's it's an interesting balance in how you do that. It's something we have to be absolutely great at plastering in coverage, though, because he is one of the best in football, if not the best, at extending plays. The vast majority of his explosives lie when he does start scrambling. He does start extending. Guys break free. He's got the receivers with the speed and the ability and the feel for his scrambling and playing off of that. They do that at a high level, so it's a great challenge. And then from a rush standpoint, I think there's always that internal timer for rushers where it's, 1-2, I got to get home. And you rush with the same urgency. That doesn't change, but I think you have to have that mentality like 2 seconds, 3 seconds, like I got to keep going. I got to keep going. We got a huge emphasis right now to win the second play. The initial play, obviously, we got to win that, but now the second play being when he starts to scramble. The shallow routes go vertical. The vertical routes come back to you, and having the discipline to keep your eyes on your man, don't look at the quarterback, and trust that our rush will contain him.
When you guys had that rough game against New England, you talked about, guys talking up in meetings and things like that.
Yep.
And I think Cincinnati was next, and they were really focused. Could you tell that week, and can you see something this week that says they're going to be ready for this pride or whatever it may
Right.
be?
Yeah, that's the one thing, we have not played to our ability. I think we're capable of being so much more and so much more consistent. And it's a prideful group, so it's the same as the way they responded from the New England week. They've done the same this week. It's good meetings, good practice, good walkthroughs. Intent's been right, communication's been right. Now it's got to translate on Sunday.
We've seen throughout the NFL, sometimes their games, but just across the entire league, the tough roughing the passer calls.
Yep.
You guys are now playing a quarterback who's a big dude and
Right.
tough to bring down.
Yep.
How do you coach, get the hats on him, get him down? Because with him, one guy's not going to do it, while also avoiding some of the penalties that we've seen across
Right.
the league.
You got to tackle him like he's a skilled player, that's the way he runs. He's not a big slider. He's a guy that's going to fight for extra yards. And at the same time, he's a quarterback, so you got to keep it in the strike zone. As you take him to the ground, you got to make sure you don't land on him. And that's a dicey game at times, especially with this guy. You approach him like a quarterback, and you miss, or you get run through, or you miss the tackle. So it's really, you got to approach him like he's a running back. You got to approach him like he's a tight end, and he's got the ball in his hands, because that's the way he runs.
How do you,
As a coach and player, you've obviously seen a lot of quarterbacks come and go. What in your estimation makes Mike White a good player at that position, and what do you think his upside is?
Mike has that really, it's that moxie, that confidence, that swag that's just uncoachable. He just has it. We've seen it in the practice field. We saw it obviously in the preseason. Now we've seen it in the regular season. It's translated to Sundays. But he's the guy that has that way about him. From what everybody said, he's like a scratch golfer. He was a draftable baseball player. He's one of those guys that's just good at everything he does. So what's his upside? Who knows? I don't think these last couple games have been a fluke. I don't think that was just by happen chance. I think that he's a skilled player that's got some special qualities to him, and it'll be exciting to see what he can become the more opportunities that he gets. But he's a kid that you pull for because he's just a fantastic teammate and human being, and I'm sure you guys have seen glimpses of that now. He's had more exposure to you, but like people talk about, that's a problem. That's a fantastic problem, having two quarterbacks that can play.
When you're having your defense go against him in practices, you're, I guess, looking at Mike from a defensive perspective. Have there been times where you've looked and had a moment where you're like, whoa, that's a little different, or wow, that was kind of special? Were there any specific situations where you saw kind of what we've now seen, whether it was in the 2 series against the Colts or the Bengals game?
I would say the biggest thing would be just, and it wasn't a moment, but going into Sundays and reflecting on it and really reflecting on the past week of work and saying, practice might have been harder than the game, he was better than maybe the quarterback we faced on Sunday. So he has that in him. But what's cool this week with Zach now helping us out defensively and being our guy, our scout team quarterback, like you get those moments, you know, every other play with Zach, you know, just what he's capable of becoming and being, and just the movement and off schedule, especially, you know, we're asking him to simulate Josh Allen and do a lot of scrambling and throw on the move, and it's really cool to watch. Like I feel like a fan sometimes out there watching him.
Jeff, yeah, just wanted to ask you about Marcus May and how you adjust without him, and who's the guy, who becomes the guy back there to organize everyone.
Yeah, Jared Wilson will be part of that. Niesman will be part of that. You know, obviously Ashton's going to have to step up and have a bigger role, especially from a vocal standpoint. So it's going to be a combination of all those guys. And then obviously Michael Carter's going to have to be part of that. Like, is he a rookie? Yes, but he's not playing like a rookie. He's playing well, and although you know, he's had his rookies bumps in the road, which we can all expect from him. He's a guy I think that's capable of being a better communicator and being more vocal. So it's going to be a collective effort by all those guys, and obviously the backers are a part of that too.
Last one here.
Oh, okay. Obviously, solid system. You guys want to be able to rush with 4 and get to the quarterback that way. Obviously, as you've probably seen on film, Josh Allen has had success against 4, 5, and 6. The passer rating kind of decreases, his completion percentage decreases. So again, it's that balance, like, you know what I'm saying? Because Miami, they had success sending 6, sometimes 7, once it's done. Same with Jacksonville. So like, what's that balance like for you?
Yeah, we just got to pick our spots, you know, and you know, at times pressure can be absolutely fantastic, and you got to find your windows, and at times it can be dangerous, you know, especially when you start to blitz and pressure and just randomly just try to throw people at them because you become unsound, maybe in coverage, you become unsound for sure against the run, you know. So it's really trying to find those predictable windows where you think it's pass, you know it's pass, and you can get after them in that way. I think, you know, when you look at us, you would say on third down, we are a pressure team. You know, there's more downs where we're bringing pressure where we're not. So it's obviously doing that on third down and then trying to find the first and second down windows where we can implement the same sort of mentality.
Thank you, everyone.